Okay, so ready to dive into a world of vibrant traditions, ancient beliefs.
I'm always up for that.
Today we're tackling the Yoruba religion. Um, its ties to the paranormal, why it's captured the imaginations of so many.
It's a fascinating blend. Spirituality, ritual, deep connection to, well, the unseen world.
I think
Plus,
challenges some assumptions.
it does, yeah.
It-
Assumptions many of us might have, I think, about faith, the nature of reality itself.
And we're not just, you know, theorizing here.
We are not.
We've got this incredible conversation, two podcasters, one a paranormal investigator, the other, well, you are expert here, who's, deeply embedded in the Yoruba faith. They get into some seriously compelling territory,
We do.
exploring listener questions about, well, everything, the Orishas, spiritual experiences, the very real power of this ancient tradition.
It's a rare glimpse into a belief system that's often, well, misunderstood, misrepresented even.
For sure. So before we get into, some of the more, shall we say, spirited encounters, let's lay some groundwork.
Always a good idea. Foundation's key, right?
Exactly. First things first. For those who might be new to this whole thing, what exactly is the Yoruba religion?
Right.
I know I've heard the term Santeria thrown around, but
Yeah.
it sounds like that's not quite the whole picture.
No, not quite. You're right. Those two terms, they often get used interchangeably, but there's a distinction.
Okay.
Think of it this way. The Yoruba religion, that's the vast ancient tree, rooted in West Africa, specifically in what's now Nigeria and Benin. It's this rich, tapestry of beliefs, practices, traditions passed down for centuries.
Okay, so where does Santeria fit into that picture then?
Santeria is more like a branch on that tree, a specific expression of Yoruba beliefs that developed in Cuba, blending with elements of Catholicism. But at its core, the Yoruba faith, whether practiced in Africa, Cuba, or, frankly, anywhere else, revolves around a fundamental belief, the existence of powerful deities. We call them Orishas.
Orishas, these are the beings at the heart of it all, right?
They are.
But they're not quite like the gods and goddesses we might find in, say, Greek mythology, are they?
Not exactly. While they share some similarities, embodying different forces of nature, human experience, the Orishas, they're believed to have once lived on Earth as humans themselves.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Walked among us, leaving behind teachings, stories, what are known as patakis, to guide their followers.
So it's also like a lineage of wisdom passed down from these powerful beings.
Yeah.
But they weren't just mythical figures then.
No.
They were teachers, leaving a legacy.
Precisely. And each Orisha, they have their own distinct personality. Their domain, lessons to impart, you've got Chango, associated with fire, lightning, music.
Intense.
Powerful, passionate energy. Then there's Yamaya, the mother goddess, linked to the ocean. Nurturing, protection, creation.
I feel calmer already.
Right. And we can't forget ocean, connected to rivers, love, beauty, sensuality. She's the one you'd call upon for, well, matters of the heart.
Okay, so it's like a divine family, each member with their own unique role. But instead of praying to one, singular god, followers of the Yoruba religion connect with these different Orishas, seeking their guidance, understanding.
Exactly. And that connection, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about, reciting prayers. It's about active engagement. It's about building relationships with these Orishas through ritual, divination.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What kind of rituals are we talking about here?
Well, one of the key things, you don't command the Orishas. It's not, hey, do my bidding. It's more about building a relationship, devotion, respect.
Well,
They're not a genie in a bottle.
right.
Guides, mentors, sources of wisdom.
So it's less about dictating, more about dialogue, understanding what the Orishas might be trying to tell you.
Yeah.
But how do you even begin to do that? That's where divination comes in.
Right. You got it. Practitioners, they use various methods to connect with the Orishas, gain insight into their own lives, the world around them. One common method involves, well, they cast cowrie shells.
Like reading the ocean.
In a way. They're also known as shamalango. The way they fall, it reveals a message from the Orishas.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a fortune cookie.
Right. Not a straightforward prediction. There's an art to interpreting those messages, I imagine.
Absolutely. It requires deep understanding, the tradition, the symbols, the individual's personal circumstances. The Orishas, they work in subtle ways, often mysterious and, well, deciphering their messages, that's a skill, honed over time.
So there's a real depth to this practice, a sense that you're tapping into something ancient, powerful, ultimately beyond our full comprehension.
And that's where the paranormal aspect starts to intertwine with the faith.
Okay.
because we're talking about spirits, deities, a whole lot of unseen forces at play.
Yeah.
It's not hard to see why people might find that both intriguing and, let's be honest, a little bit unnerving.
Especially when you consider the personal experiences of, our expert here and others like him.
Hmm.
He talks about this journey he took to Cuba. And it wasn't just a sightseeing trip.
Yeah, not at all.
He was on a quest to connect with the roots of his faith, experience the raw power of the Yoruba tradition in a place where it's deeply ingrained in the culture.
Absolutely.
But gaining access to those authentic experiences, it sounds like it wasn't as simple as he'd hoped.
Not in the age of the internet.
Right.
There's a long history of exploitation. Outsiders misrepresenting, sensationalizing the religion for their own gain,
It's like those awful ghost hunting shows.
Yeah.
Just disrespectful.
Exactly. Imagine being bombarded by tourists, looking for a quick thrill, a magical solution to their problems, not truly respecting the sacredness of your faith.
Right.
It's like showing up at a sacred site and expecting a show, completely missing the point.
Totally.
And that's the challenge he faced.
Right.
Amidst the tourist traps, the superficial encounters, he has this experience that changes everything. He meets someone he refers to as the twin, a practitioner whose abilities, defied explanation.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. What kind of abilities are we talking about? Give us the details.
Well, he's a bit cryptic about the specifics, but it's clear that this twin possessed this deep understanding, spiritual energy, ritual, the ability to interact with unseen forces in a way that was, awe-inspiring. A little unsettling, if we're being honest.
So we're not just talking about faith here. We're talking about firsthand experience.
Yeah.
He saw something that challenged his understanding of what's possible.
Absolutely. This encounter, it was a turning point for him, solidifying his belief in the unseen world, its power. But it also, it brought up another question that a lot of, listeners had. What about the darker side of the spirit world?
That's a great point. Every coin has two sides, right? If there are forces of good, are there also forces of evil at play within, the Yoruba belief system?
It's not about good versus evil, not in a simplistic way. It's more nuanced. Think of it as maintaining balance, navigating the complexities of a spiritual ecosystem, right?
Okay, I like that.
And within that ecosystem, there are entities that are, let's just say, best avoided.
Like the one he refers to as a dark dead, Huerto Oscuro. That sounds pretty intense.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Imagine a powerful, potentially very dangerous entity, often associated with, unresolved trauma, anger, or a desire for revenge even from beyond the grave. It's not something you want to mess with. And there are specific rituals, practices used to protect oneself or others from their influence.
So it's like, what? Spiritual self-defense. You need to know how to protect yourself in this unseen world, just like you would in the physical one. It makes you think about the people who do try to tap into that darker energy, though. Is there a risk of someone becoming a kind of, dark practitioner?
That question definitely comes up. He actually recounts a story about this man, Adolfo Constanzo, a practitioner who, he went down a very dark path, using his knowledge for selfish, harmful purposes.
Okay, this Constanzo guy sounds like he could be a whole deep dive on his own.
Oh, easily. Constanzo was notorious. Involvement in some horrific crimes, claiming to use, dark magic to gain power, wealth. But he stresses that this wasn't a failure of the Yoruba religion itself, but rather a reflection of, human fallibility, right?
Sure.
We all have the capacity for both good and evil, regardless of our beliefs.
So it's a sobering reminder. Knowledge, even spiritual knowledge, can be misused. It's like any powerful tool. It depends on whose hands it's in.
Precisely. And this is where discernment and intention are absolutely crucial. Authentic Yoruba practice, as he explains, it's about healing, guidance, living in harmony with the spiritual world, not manipulating it for personal gain.
It all comes back to that respect, that understanding we talked about earlier. But I have to ask, with all this talk of powerful entities, dark forces, did he ever share any personal experiences that, really sent chills down his spine?
Oh, you bet. He talks about this chilling encounter in his own home, actually, where he sensed this presence, something dark, heavy, that left him, physically and emotionally drained. He describes this ability to perceive shifts in energy, almost like a sixth sense, that allows him to detect the presence of entities, even in, seemingly ordinary settings.
Okay, now that's just plain creepy. I don't know about you, but I'd be sleeping with all the lights on after that. It makes you wonder, are there certain places that are more prone to this kind of activity?
Funny you should mention that. The interviewer actually brings up the concept of thin places.
Thin places.
The idea that certain locations, often steeped in history or spiritual significance, they might have this thinner veil between the physical and spiritual realms. Think ancient ruins, battlefields,
Well,
or even crossroads.
crossroads, huh? Isn't that where, in a lot of folklore, you make deals with, well, let's just say interesting entities?
It's a common motif, and it speaks to that idea of thresholds, liminal spaces where the boundaries between worlds might be more permeable. And his experiences, they seem to support this idea. Encounters happening not just in his home, but also in places with their own, well, unique energy.
Like his trip to Cuba, for instance.
Yeah.
That whole island has a rich spiritual history, right?
Exactly. And speaks of objects with unique energy, he gives us this glimpse into some of the more tangible aspects of his practice. He describes his personal nanga, which is, it's like this sacred container, kind of like an altar, but with a seriously potent punch.
A gunga. Okay, so what's in this container that makes it so special?
It's not for the faint of heart. It contains this powerful blend of elements, including animal remains, personal belongings, herbs, other consecrated items. He's very clear that this isn't some trinket you pick up at a tourist shop. It's a living, breathing entity that requires respect, knowledge, and a healthy dose of caution to handle. It's a bit like creating a powerful entity in other traditions, a force to be reckoned with.
It sounds like it's not just the objects themselves, but the intention, the energy imbued in them that makes them so potent.
Exactly. And to emphasize that point, he reveals a gift he received, a carved ivory Lilith pendant from a sunken ship, no less.
Hold on. Lilith, as in the Lilith, what's shrouded in all that mythology.
The one and only. And get this, the pendant is sealed shut, impossible to open, as if guarding its own secrets. It's a chilling parallel, don't you think? This tangible object, unknown origins, a representation of this powerful, often misunderstood figure, mirroring the very forces he navigates in his practice. It's like the universe has a sense of humor, dropping this artifact into his lap as if to say, keep going, you're on the right track.
Okay, that sends shivers down my spine. It's almost like a tangible manifestation of all these unseen connections we've been talking about. And speaking of connections, this whole conversation, it's eerily timely, isn't it?
You're picking up on it too. He actually brings up the concept of synchronicity, the idea that seemingly unrelated events can be meaningfully connected. He senses this link, something beyond coincidence between the episode's themes, the interviewer, and his own experiences.
It's like we're all part of some grand cosmic web, with threads weaving together in ways we can't always see or understand.
It's almost like, we stumbled onto this secret code. And just glimpsing these connections, these threads, it hints at this whole hidden structure to reality.
And that sense of uncovering hidden structures, that's what draws so many people to the Yoruba faith to begin with, right?
It is. It's not just dogma. It's a living system that they feel, well, interwoven with.
Okay, so knowing all this, how do we even begin to reconcile these ancient beliefs with, our modern understanding of the world? This feels way bigger than just one religion.
You're right. You're hitting on something really crucial there. The Yoruba faith, it's not about, blind faith. It's about experiencing those energies firsthand, their rituals, divination. It's all about interacting with the unseen, not just theorizing about it.
So it's less about intellectually believing and more about direct personal experience.
Yeah.
Which makes all those stories, those encounters with spirits, with the Orishas themselves, even more significant.
Exactly. And that's where our own exploration comes in. We may not have a gunga or cowrie shells, but we each have our ways of sensing the world beyond the ordinary.
You're right. Maybe it's like a gut feeling that saves us from danger,
Yeah.
or a moment of synchronicity that feels strangely meaningful, or even just the curiosity that makes us ask, what if there's more?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And by engaging with traditions like the Yoruba faith, even if it's just through stories like this, we open ourselves up to those possibilities. We start to question our assumptions about what's real, what's possible, and maybe, just maybe, we catch a glimpse of something truly extraordinary within ourselves.
It's about trusting that intuition, paying attention to those whispers of something beyond the everyday, accepting that some mysteries, well, they're best explored, not explained.
Well said. The Yoruba faith, with its emphasis on personal experience, connection to the unseen, it reminds us that true understanding often lies beyond, logic and reason.
It's a call to embrace the unknown, to approach life's mysteries with both curiosity but also respect, and perhaps to discover that the most profound truths are often those that we feel, rather than simply comprehend.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What if we're all carrying around these hidden reserves of, well, let's call it spiritual potential?
Like we're all hardwired for these kinds of experiences, but we've just forgotten how to access them.
It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it? That maybe, just maybe, the most extraordinary journeys are the ones that take us inward.
Back to those ancient primal parts of ourselves, the parts that still remember, that still resonate with these unseen energies.
The parts that whisper to us in dreams, that send shivers down our spines when we least expect it. The parts that say, there's more to this life than meets the eye.
And maybe, by paying attention to those whispers, by approaching the world with a sense of wonder, we can start to unlock those hidden reserves.
It's about reclaiming that sense of awe, that feeling of interconnectedness, the understanding that we are part of something so much bigger, so much grander than we could ever imagine.
It's a humbling thought, and a liberating one. Because if we can tap into that, well, who knows what we might be capable of.
And on that note, I think we'll leave our listeners with that question. What if the true magic, the true power, lies not in ancient rituals or distant deities, but within ourselves?
It's a question worth pondering, a question that might just lead to some truly extraordinary discoveries. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Yoruba religion and the paranormal. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never lose that sense of wonder.